I've left Mangalore probably over 30 to 34 years, but still Mangalore has always been my Jaan.
Does education play an important role?
I think education plays a huge role, but not in actually in the sense that what we think about.
Okay. So you mean to say that if you want to be the next Sekhar Naik?
So I don't think it would not be a context of the next Sekhar Naik.
Okay.
The context would be the next person who's going to be successful.
Early initial schooling and college, has it impacted you in a major way?
It has impacted me in a tremendous way. I think it's
Awesome.
it's a sort of like a pivotal moment in my life.
Okay.
And I was going to become a doctor. Two branches. One was finance, other one was HR. Teacher who was going to be teaching finance kind of came in and actually kind of pitched why finance as their specialization. But then I listened to it and I said, oh my God, this is really what I want to do in my life. I want to study business.
Since 2004,
Yes.
Mresult company has been the leader. What makes it stand out even now?
What happened was, even back then, I said we want to be a world leader in analytics. That was, a vision that I had. So people who kind of came in, they kind of saw the passion, and then eventually that became the culture.
You're also an inspiration for the health and fitness enthusiast too, because you're a marathon athlete.
Core is not so much wealth, money. The core is health.
In India, there's a saying that there's nothing which Rajnikant can't do.
True.
So it goes the same with Mr. Naik too. You have a commercial pilot license too. So now what is this exactly? I'm really curious. Yeah, it's exciting all the way.
During the COVID, I had to kind of take on some new activities. My wife suggested, hey, maybe you should think about like flying. It's a piston plane. It's a 5-seater, piston plane. But I think if I had to kind of bring my jet plane here to Mangalore, which is my dream. Hopefully I'm going to do it at some point of time.
We as a kid, we write in a bucket list, okay, this is the award. So any next award slowly you have written and kept under your pillow, so this is the next award I dream for.
No, I think I never was. I think even this award was very surprising to me. I'm truly honored to kind of get this award. And, there are many very deserving people, who have kind of gotten the award. But look, I think if somebody recognizes me, I think you should not, you should accept that.
I'm super honored because Mangalore Meri Jaan has started a business podcast and the name is I to I, that is idea to innovation, where an idea from scratch can lead to anywhere, which is sky is the limit. But honored in a double way today because I have with me someone where an idea has transformed into Karnataka Rajyotsava award and he's won that. And I have with me Mr. Sekhar Naik, who is the founder and CEO of Mresult, but more than that, he has won the Karnataka Rajyotsava award of 2024 in the NRI category, that is Horadesha Horanadu. So it's an honor to have you on a podcast, and I mean it.
Abhishek, thank you so much. I'm honored to be on the Mangalore Meri Jaan podcast. Honored to be here, and Mangalore. I've left Mangalore probably over 30 to 34 years, but still Mangalore has always been my Jaan, forever.
Awesome, sir.
So it's so nice to come back here and talk to you about my journey and perhaps my days in Mangalore and where things are. So honored to be here.
Same here, sir. So, till now, I've seen people win award that is in television or anything, but awardee who's sitting next to me is really surreal for me. And I'm not telling this for any brownie points, but I do mean it, sir. Now I really want to ask you, so you have a journey of your life, maybe from schooling days or college days, and after that you have done your MBA from the University of Delaware.
Yes.
In general, sir, but this is for a layman thing, does education play an important role, like in India or abroad? Like, does it have brownie points in abroad or something like that? What do you feel, sir?
I think education plays a huge role, but not in actually in the sense that what we think about.
Okay.
So generally, I think traditionally, probably parents wanted their kids to kind of get educated. Perhaps they will learn things, and then also perhaps kind of have that sort of like a key to the future in terms of maybe like a degree. Using a particular degree, maybe an engineering degree or a medical degree, there is sort of like your card or like your passport for a particular job opportunities and all of that. Now, in some ways, for some education or for some fields, that degree still plays a huge role, especially, where things are accredited. let's say, for example, if you want to be a doctor or if you want to be a lawyer, you can't really learn things off the internet and actually treat somebody. You have to kind of go through the whole accreditation process. But then the world is going to change. Now, that said, despite all of that, education is still really important because it gives you context.
Okay.
It gives you connections in some ways. So in many ways, I think we are all islands by ourselves. So when we go to a school or a college, we get exposure. We see other people. We learn from them. Many of especially Mangalore. Mangalore is a great, phenomenal educational hub. We are very, I guess we are basically very fortunate that we are here. We live here for the folks from Mangalore, and we are exposed to people from different places and different cultures, because a lot of people actually going to come to Mangalore to study, and in some ways that makes us more sophisticated, right? So I think at least from that context, I think education is really is extremely important, because you get exposure, you have access to ideas.
But does it matter, like be studying in India or abroad? Like, does it have a major difference there, sir?
That again kind of goes back to the
Okay.
context.
No,
I think it used to matter a lot.
Okay.
A little less now, but still, nevertheless, I think for example, I think people, if they are from Mangalore or from India, they go to the US and let's say they're going to study there, they are exposed to the culture in some ways.
Okay.
There, yeah. And maybe also in some ways, perhaps even some cutting edge technologies and things like that, they are exposed to it. And when they kind of come back to India, when they kind of come back to Mangalore, perhaps they can utilize it, they can leverage that for sure.
So you mean to say that if you want to be the next Sekhar Naik, this is the thing you need to follow, like what you have just said, maybe in
I really think, in some ways, because the world is changing so rapidly, so quickly.
Okay.
So I don't think it would not be a context of the next Sekhar Naik.
Okay.
The context would be the next person who's going to be successful.
Okay.
Successful perhaps in their dreams, in terms of
Awesome.
their entrepreneurial journey, in terms of their perhaps in some kind of a passion that they have. So I think, I'm not even sure how the learnings of Sekhar Naik would they actually apply for the learning of the youngsters that are actually probably like watching this show. It's a different world. I mean, it always kind of feels surreal. The world I grew up in Mangalore, which is almost around 30 years back, to the world current. But perhaps it'll be a different, perhaps even much more successful than Sekhar Naik. And they will have a different journey, but there will be certain common threads.
Okay.
And perhaps during this show today, we can explore some of those common threads. Perhaps.
Definitely,
Yes.
sir. Because I want everything to know about like how to achieve in that level. And one more thing I wanted to ask you, sir. When you talk about, we know that you have done your MBA in the University of Delaware, but the early initial schooling and college, has it impacted you in a major way, like where you set your goal that I want to do this? Has it helped you initially, sir?
It has impacted me in a tremendous way. I think it's a sort of like a pivotal moment in my life.
Okay.
So kind of going back to perhaps my very early story, nearly 30 years back, I studied, most of my schooling was not in Mangalore.
Okay.
Almost all of my schooling till about 12th grade or second PUC was in Andhra Pradesh.
Oh, okay.
And I was going to become a doctor. And what happened was, back then you have MCAT, so the entrance exam. So back then, I studied in Andhra Pradesh, and I kind of gave the entrance exam there. But kind of given the timing of things, because you give entrance exams, you kind of wait for a long time. So I guess the admissions were going to take about 3 or 4 months. And so somebody suggested, hey, you're here in Mangalore anyway, so why don't you just kind of go to college rather than actually just kind of hang out at your home? Just go to college. And what happened was, I was waiting for my results, for my medical entrance exam results for Andhra Pradesh, and then somebody suggested a BBM, and which is completely different than what I was going to be prepared for. And I went to the BBM, the SDM College of Business Management here in Mangalore. I gave my interview there. I went to the class, and then what happened was there were 2 branches. One was finance, other one was HR. So the teacher who was going to be teaching finance kind of came in and actually kind of pitched why kids should take, why students should take finance as their specialization. But then I listened to it and I said, oh my God, this is really what I want to do in my life. I want to study business. And so that's kind of what I meant by a pivotal moment.
Awesome.
So because if I had not done that, maybe For all we know, I may have been a doctor or a dentist perhaps.
So in a layman's terms, I can tell it was a game changer in a major way.
It is a game changer in pretty much, because I think what happens is, we all kind of go through our things in our life. Yeah. And, now people people actually tell me, wow, you work really hard. And I tell myself, gee, I'm not working at all. And I think the disconnect probably is because of the fact that I like what I do. And so that never really kind of feels like work at all. So it's a big game changer, because it's not a job what I do, because I'm very passionate. And right on that day, this is perhaps about nearly 30 years back, I discovered that I really had a passion for business and entrepreneurship. Now, it was latent before that, but I never really even considered that I was going to be either a doctor or perhaps a dentist. So it is a game changer, for sure.
And one more thing, sir, like you have worked in maybe Dubai or Mumbai or other cities and other countries.
Yes.
But any point of time, have you thought that, was there a different broader spectrum or regarding the IT industry insights where you thought that, okay, this is the right time where I need to start my company? Yes. So was that a reason why you started Mresult as?
I was always entrepreneurial, but again, kind of going back to IT, I think they were always, I had passion for starting things or selling things, because I think as an entrepreneur, we think about starting things in many ways, but I think the biggest thing probably for entrepreneurs is more than even starting, or more than actually creating a product or ideation of a product. It's actually like selling things. So a lot of us are really not good at selling perhaps, but I think perhaps that is again something that we need to be very cognizant about. And so I still remember this. I was doing my BBM. I had just started on BBM, and back then the college was from 1:30 in the afternoon till about like 4:30 in the evening. So I had all this time in the morning and in the evening. And back then, this is again, we're talking about late 80s, early 90s, working was very uncommon. You did not have students kind of go back and work back then. But then now I really wanted to work, for some reason I wanted to actually work. So one of my uncles had a computer center, and he had kind of tied up with like Bharati with Vidya Bhavan, and he was actually kind of train, the center was to kind of train people back then.
And in which city was it, sir?
What is that?
In which city was it?
This is in Mangalore.
Oh, okay.
Right here in Bharati Vidya Bhavan in Mangalore. This was back in late 80s. And this is when IT had just kind of started. Okay. You had like the Windows, IBM, boxes, or I guess the computers were, the PC computers were there. And so my job, so I told him, I had to kind of come with an excuse, to work. So I said, listen, I need to really get work experience to apply for an MBA eventually in America. So I need to kind of, can I kind of work for you so I can get some work experience? And so he was kind enough to say, okay, go ahead. And then I ended up responsible for taking care of the students there and recruiting students. But now these are all people who were professional people who were like doctors, who were in their 30s, 40s, 50s, maybe even 60s, because computers were really new back then. And so they started actually, my job was to enroll them. My job was to even train them some simpler programs and things like that. So I kind of got like an early lead back then on technology and computers. And I had kind of built a reputation for selling, because I kind of go to people, and back then people didn't even know what computers were, and I would actually try to kind of enroll them in this computer courses, Word or like Excel and things like that. They didn't have Excel, they had like Lotus back then. I would do that. So thinking back fondly, yes, I was sort of like exposed, though I'm not a computer engineer, I was exposed to sort of like, technology and computers, kind of sort of like early on. And I think kind of going back to my journey back then, I also was, I would kind of, get books and things like that. And stock markets are very nascent back then. People would actually apply for, we call public offers, right? You kind of IPOs or public offers, public issues. So they would apply. So I had some sort of like pocket money back then, and I would actually apply for some public shares back then. And so somehow I kind of got fascinated by stock markets, and now there is this whole concept called technicals in stock market. You actually have obviously the fundamentals, which is kind of based on your past earnings of stocks. It's also kind of based on what are the projected future earnings of stock. That's kind of how the stock price is. But then also there is this whole concept called technicals, which is actually like how the stocks have behaved. And there are some theories around like Fibonacci numbers, Elliott wave theory, and all of that. So I ended up actually kind of really, studying those things. And given that I had proficiency in Lotus or Excel, you could kind of draw some of these things out. And what happened was, unfortunately, my dad passed away when I was 19, when I was going to my college.
Yep.
And then I borrowed money from my mother and invested in stock markets. And so now this was just the beginning of, back in 1991, Indian economy was just kind of being opened out, it was just kind of being liberalized. And so the stock markets actually really, really went up. And this was also probably, I don't know if you heard about Harshad Mehta's time. So stock markets really went up. Now I thought, wow, I'm a financial whiz, because my portfolio actually kind of went up by about like 5 times probably.
Oh, okay.
And so I thought I was actually a financial whiz. And I wanted to be a stockbroker. Go to Bombay, do jobbing there in Bombay, or sub-broking, whatever you call it. And I want to do that. And so as soon as I finished my last day of college, I went to Bombay to become a jobber. Now I had no idea, how to kind of get there. But then I went there and I kind of got some openings there and started working in Bombay in the stock markets. And I was there for a couple of years. And I said, you know what, I want to kind of go abroad. So that is really kind of what got me to kind of go to UAE, to Dubai, and eventually America.
So you already had a plan that you wanted to be an entrepreneur and you want to start up a company?
Yes.
From early back. Sir.
I think it's not so much that I think here is the thing probably. It's not so much that I had a plan to become an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I think in some ways, looking back, I was an entrepreneur in some ways. So, I think it was because back then, you would not necessarily plan on, because these things, people, I think back then, you would either actually kind of, doctor would be like the top-notch thing. People would kind of become a doctor. People would actually kind of become maybe like an engineer, or maybe a lawyer, or, I think there were MBA programs back then. They had kind of started off and things like that. So people would actually kind of, get an MBA degree back then perhaps. So it was fairly uncommon back then to go back and say, I want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe I don't even know if people are using that word. They'll probably say, I want to be a businessman. Maybe, right? So back then, right? Now entrepreneur is obviously like a very cool word now. Right? Now it's a Gen Z word. It's a very super cool word now. But I think by nature though, you kind of see in people probably in your life, right? Some people, they are like constantly, that you see that. You can see that, hey, this one is probably going to be a good entrepreneur. You kind of feel that. Or somebody who's very passionate about changing the world. So you may see, hey, this person is going to be an activist, right? So I think deep in me, I had this, it was pretty latent for me. I think I always had a liking for something like that.
Okay.
I just didn't have the brand back then, what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a successful person.
Awesome.
And so, I'm extremely fortunate that, whatever concept I had, abstract concept, that really like worked out.
And so, I'm trying to break this code now.
Yes.
Since 2004,
yes.
Mresult company has been the leader, be it in IT consulting or cutting edge AI services, financial products or HR solution. What makes it stand out even now? So what is the secret mantra or what is the secret behind that?
So I think again, when we first started Mresult in 2004, I did have a vision. I wanted to be, back then, we did not necessarily have AI, and things like that. But, we had analytics. That was something that we had a lot of expertise in. And what happened was, even back then, I said we want to be a world leader in analytics. That was, a vision that I had. Now, though I had an MBA degree and, all of those things, sort of like a formal strategy map on setting up a vision and having a mission and, going about it, I really never really, kind of went about it in a formal way.
Okay.
We never really had, things like, hey, this is what our culture is. We never actually kind of, we never really had our mission statement when new people kind of joined the company. We never really had it. But what the company really had was, I had a couple of like very foundational things. I was very passionate in whatever I did. And my first employee, Mati, he's still with us. He's one of our senior VPs. So he had the same passion. Passion was to, go above and beyond, make customers happy, and passion for solving problems. So in some ways, as a company, because the company started off as a one-person company back then in 2004, and as the company continued to kind of evolve and grow, it kind of continued on. So people who kind of came in, they kind of saw the passion, and then eventually that became the culture. So we never kind of set out and say, hey, look, this is actually what our culture is. Right in the day one, we didn't do that because we had no idea what our culture was. And back then, those concepts were really hard for us to kind of figure out. When you have a 5-people company, or I mean, maybe perhaps the end of 2004 or first year, we probably had about 25 people. It was very hard to kind of go back and define, hey, this is our culture.
Okay.
But now kind of looking back, I mean, we see that as our culture, we see that. Now that said, I mean, our culture also, we have kind of taken risk in some ways, right? Because in some ways, in my case, kind of going back to the success, obviously you want to really have passion for solving problems. You want to make sure you have happy customers, happy employees. But we also kind of got lucky. Some of our initial customers, and actually all of our customers now, but some of our initial customers were some of the world's largest companies. Oh. So it was very fortuitous because our first customer was the world's largest life sciences company. Okay. And it was very fortuitous that we started kind of working with them. And so when they saw a provider who was very customer-centric and very passionate and very capable, they started kind of giving us more and more work. Because sometimes what actually happens is, you are very passionate, you want to do phenomenal work, and you put in a lot of effort. You try to kind of make customers happy. Sometimes I guess the customers probably they would not appreciate that. So it's a key. It's very important to also kind of go back and actually make sure you work with the right customers. It's extremely, extremely important. So especially for us, because we've been working with some very large clients. So in fact, I joke this with our customers sometimes. We said we have A, B, and C customers. A customers are extremely large enterprise companies. They pay a lot of money for really good, sophisticated solutions. Not only do they do that, they are thankful to you. They kind of come back and say, "Great job, fantastic. We are glad we have you as a partner." And then you have, I just kind of kid about it, like B customers. They give you good money, but they expect you to do a lot of work. They give you good money, expect a lot of work, but then you learn some cutting edge problem solving with them, which is good. You're learning with them. And then you have C customers. They don't pay you a lot of money, and then they tell you like how bad you are. And the secret to success is not only about doing great work. It's about identifying A and B customers and trying to kind of have more of them. Because if you work with C customers, the same you put in all the work and you're miserable. No point doing that.
So you're an inspiration for everybody, no doubt. Not only because you have won this award, but I want to tell you, sir, you can be totally modest in this. But I want to tell you that because of you, it has helped major the Karnataka economy, and even the tier 2 cities like Mangalore, it has helped in a major way as employment and jobs. Are you aware of that, sir? What's the scene
I mean,
here?
we still feel we are a small company relatively because we are, maybe just about like 1,000 people plus company. But I think it feels really gratifying when we kind of go to colleges or when we talk to people and people, admire Mresult. Though we're a smaller organization, so that is very, very gratifying. So let me be very clear, we are relatively a smaller company, but every small bit counts, I suppose, right?
That's why I told you, you can be modest, but these are the facts which I'm telling right now, because it's like that, sir, because it has helped in a major way, which you may not be knowing or you don't want to reveal out to the world, because so that's the thing. And one more thing, sir, always I want to tell you, because I'm a big fan of whoever is a philanthropist or anything. You being a philanthropist, I want the people to know that firstly you're a philanthropist. And is it because that you have been inspired by late Ratan Tata, Warren Buffett or something like that, or you always wanted to be a philanthropist to help with a good deed or anything like that?
What happened was, I think in some ways, I guess in some ways it's a natural extension, natural progression, because again, kind of when you, as a student, when I went to America, it's you try to kind of make your ends meet, because you really, you don't have a lot of money, right? And you are trying to kind of make your ends meet. And then, there are certain people who really kind of help you, certain organizations can help you. I had a scholarship from, from University of Delaware. So in some ways, you can look at the scholarship as a philanthropy in some ways. And so eventually, once I started seeing success, it's a natural progression. at least in America, it's a natural progression to kind of go back and say, hey, what can we do now? So, at some point you're financially stable, you have financial security, and then you start thinking, how do I kind of make an impact beyond my business? What else can we do as a person? And so, part of that, I think around like 10 years back, I and my wife, again, we are very fortunate to have seen all this success. And we wanted to do something that's local. So, I'm from, though I have a place we have presence in New York and Boston, our primary house is in Connecticut. It's a small town called Mystic, Connecticut. And so what happened was there was this organization, called YMCA, which, it's all over the world. And so they wanted to, completely rebuild the Mystic branch. And now this place is actually very close to our home, maybe like just about 2 kilometers from our home. And so we said, why don't we kind of do something local here in some ways? And so
for the community program.
For the community, exactly. Okay. Right. So we ended up actually being the anchors, for that particular YMCA, and they were able to rebuild the YMCA. And so they honored us by renaming the YMCA as the Naik family YMCA. Okay. And let me tell you, I think that is probably one of the best things that I and my wife have done, because of course, I've had a lot of success, and I'm also passionate about other things as well. And but then I think giving back when we kind of go there, or when we, because again, especially when you kind of go to a different place, and when you have a lot of success in other place, it also is really important to leave your mark there. So truly, we are blessed, we are honored to be able to do that. So since then, I think we are part of probably close to around like 10 different organizations. Some of them are related to Karnataka. I think there is actually also there is an organization about promoting Tulu. So part of that, we've always been big supporters of that back in America. So there are a number of other organizations that we want to kind of at least like play a small part.
I hope every successful entrepreneur thinks this way, so that he does something for the community development or anything. So because everybody doesn't do it, for sure. Yeah, but
perhaps I think people are, Abhishek, honestly, like I kind of feel people are changing now, right? People, because I think again, kind of the world I grew up in was a tough world, was a constrained world. People always wanted to, financial security was very, very important for them. But in this new world, I think, given I think the people's exposure, what they kind of see, people are actually more and more, I think, going beyond, hey, listen, I'm going to be okay, I'll be happy. I think people are starting to realize that they don't need enormous amount of money to be happy. And I think I'm seeing more and more people, because in India too, like I think for the past 10 years, you definitely have companies that are doing corporate social responsibility. They're doing like more things about that. Again, there are tremendous opportunities in India. This is a place where, you have many talented young people. So this is really the future of the world. I really truly see that. And that will kind of come from successful organizations, both existing businesses, social organizations. There is a huge promotion basically around, women empowerment, kids kind of going to government schools and all of that. So I think I truly see people actually kind of going beyond themselves in India to see the transformation, because I think what happens is when people are, Abhishek, when you are actually here, you don't necessarily, it's kind of hard for you to see the change. So I come to India 3-4 times a year. Still, every time I kind of come, I kind of see a change. So I'm seeing a lot of social related changes kind of happening in India. I'm super impressed. I'm super gratified. This is ultimately, great. Though I've been living in America for close to 28, almost 30 years. This is my hometown, and India is still a country I was born in. So though technically I'm not Indian, I cannot vote in India. Right. Let's kind of leave it at that. So it's very gratifying to kind of see the changes here, both in terms of the whole infrastructure and also in terms of people's mindset.
Whoever is watching this video or whoever is in the room right now, they can't even imagine what life and the schedule might be of Mr. Naik, because it's a busy schedule, we all know that. But you're also an inspiration for the health and fitness enthusiast too, because you're a marathon athlete, and that's the icing on the cake now I want to talk about, sir. You have also ran in the marathons of New York and Philadelphia.
That's right, yeah.
In this busy schedule, how did this interest inculcate? I want to know that, sir. I'm curious now.
Again, kind of going back to the core. I think the core is, and I think more and more people actually recognize it. The core is not so much wealth, money. The core is health. Yeah. That's the most important thing. If you don't have health, you're not going to, no amount of success, no amount of money is going to really be of much help to you, right? Because you're going to be miserable, right? And I think, that's probably one thing kind of growing up again in old India back then, the emphasis was not so much on physical training or running and things like that was not really. I used to kind of go to gyms, I would kind of do some stuff, but again, back then I would kind of eat a lot of food, so consequently in my early 30s I kind of gained weight and things like that. But at some point, I realized I really need to take care of my health, and so I just started running. So started off maybe running like a mile, 2 miles, and eventually, I started running like 4, 5, 6 miles. And then I did a number of half marathons. I did about 5 half marathons I've kind of done. And then eventually it's like time to do a marathon. So, marathons are hard. They're really, hard on your body. But it kind of gives you a supreme sense of accomplishment, especially the New York Marathon. I mean, the New York Marathon is something very, very unique. Again, I've not done many marathons, but I've heard from a lot of people, in the world that, it's a very unique marathon because, marathon is is actually like about 26.2 miles. And in New York, what happens is you start actually at Staten Island, and then you kind of go through the whole Staten Island Bridge. You kind of go through Brooklyn, you go through Queens, and then you actually kind of go through Manhattan, and finally, you basically end at Central Park. Oh. Now, what happens? This 26.2 miles in New York, the New York Marathon, you have like people lined up through the whole 26.2 miles, and you're actually running with probably around like 35 or 30 or 40,000 people. You're running with other people. And then you actually have these people, like 26.2 miles, all lined up and chanting and cheering and supporting you. It's an unbelievable, experience.
I'm sure.
And if you're a runner, watching this, this telecast or podcast, I think you really, really should kind of consider the New York Marathon. Amazing marathon.
And how often do you participate in this? Like, is it on a monthly basis, or how do you?
No. I mean, I guess the last marathon it's been a number of years since I kind of ran the New York Marathon. But now I'm actually kind of working towards my next year marathon. I'm hoping to, kind of run the New York Marathon next year.
Okay.
So generally, New York Marathon is around like end of October. But I'm hoping to kind of run the next year marathon. I'm starting to, train for it. So, I mean, training again, for a marathon is slightly different than what you generally do. It's a little bit more dedicated affair. You start off and then you start running about like between 7 to 10 miles, so long runs is about 7 to 10 miles. And eventually you kind of increase the mileage. But, you keep a small window for it, maybe a 2 or 3 month window. And then, maybe in that window, your long mile, you probably try to aim for anywhere about 17 to 18 miles, aim your longest mile. And then hopefully, you don't kind of get any injuries, because that's actually the big risk with marathon. It's not so much the running part at all. It's actually in that, in that excitement or josh, you actually, you overdo it and you get injured. Yeah. And that's the biggest challenge. And hopefully you don't get injured, and then, you can run the marathon.
This, I really want every people watching this podcast to know. In India, there's a saying that there's nothing which Rajinikanth can't do.
True.
So it goes the same with Mr. Naik too. You have a commercial pilot license too. Yeah. So this is like, I don't know whether I'm interviewing a celebrity here or an actor here, because it's like all the bucket list you have checked it out. So now what is this exactly? I'm really curious. Yeah, it's exciting all the way.
It was a terrible time for a lot of people. So I think like a lot of people who kind of get into flying, they generally have a passion to be a pilot, when they're young, and then they kind of pursue it later on. And in my case, I always wanted to be an astronaut. Oh. Now that's an astronaut is actually a much harder thing to do. Because it's a very fewer opportunities.
I wouldn't be surprised if you tell you're an astronaut later at the end of the podcast, but yeah, you continue, sir. I want to listen.
I hope so. Hopefully one day I will.
Yeah,
right?
okay, yeah.
But then, so I wanted to be an astronaut. So I never really fancied flying per se. Okay. But then I think, during the COVID, like I had to kind of take on some new activities, right? And my wife suggested, hey, maybe you should think about like flying, right? So I went out there, looked at some planes. I tried flying, and I started liking it. I mean, it's a challenging activity. And so I think obviously a lot of entrepreneurs, they like challenges. So in some ways, I think that kind of carried over in some ways. And so so I started flying, and then my first plane it was going to kind of come in April of 2023 last year, and it's a piston plane. It's a 5-seater piston plane, and I accelerated my flight training and got my license last year. My PPL, which is actually private pilot license, I got it in last March of 2023, and then I took delivery of the plane. Now the thing is, once you have your own plane, you realize that wow, flying is challenging, and it's a risky thing. And the best way to really mitigate the risk is to continue to kind of fly a lot. Now it's a question of your life and your safety, and you need to be. This would not be like driving a car. So if you didn't, let's say if you did not actually kind of fly for like 2 weeks, and if you're going to go back to your plane, you start kind of feeling a little anxious. So I started really kind of flying a lot, and then I think the next logical step, once you're a private pilot, was to kind of get your instrument rating. So normally what happens, when you fly in clear weather. I mean, not if you're flying in Mangalore.
Okay.
Mangalore, you have clouds too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, true.
So, but then I think again, mostly, if you're a PPO, you have to kind of fly in clear weather. And if there is clouds, you cannot really kind of fly in them at all, because you cannot really kind of see, and you could kind of get like disoriented. So people, who want to fly in clouds would have to, which is actually really a next logical process, would have to kind of get their what is called as instrument rating. So which is pretty much you fly through the aid of instruments. So normally when you fly, you're looking outside and you can actually fly, but if you're in clouds, you cannot look outside because it's not clear. So you look at your instruments and fly, so you kind of get a rating for that, which is actually a pretty difficult rating. You have to kind of pass an exam and things like that. So, I did that, and then the next facet after that was, hey, let's, I've been flying so much, why not kind of get my commercial rating as well? So I got my commercial pilot license, and then what I did was, I had my piston plane, and then I think I realized, if I had to kind of go far, because in my business, in terms of the company, we actually have customers at many different places. And then also we had, before COVID, we actually had about 6 different offices in the US. So I think it was important for me to be able to kind of fly, to farther distances. So I ended up getting a jet. And so, if you're going to fly a jet, you have to kind of get your jet type rating. So I got that done. And so, now, I am now flying my jet.
Awesome.
And my dream would be I'm working towards it. It'll take me time, is to kind of build about 1,500 hours, and actually there is a separate rating for that, a completely different rating. Hopefully I'll kind of get that one day.
We wouldn't bother you with the commercial plane thing, we Mangalore Meri Jaan team, but as you told that the piston plane has 5-seater, we are just 4 of them. Right. So anytime we can call you, sir, and take us for a ride or a spin. Are we good to go, sir?
If you come to America, because my jet now, my Vision jet, actually it's a 7-seater, 5 adults and 2 children, so it'll definitely kind of fit you. But I think if I had to kind of bring my jet plane here to Mangalore, which is my dream, hopefully I'll kind of do it at some point of time, I'll have to kind of do like about 5 stops, because it's not going to fly transatlantic. It'll not fly from New York to London or something like that. I'll have to kind of go through the whole Icelandic route, basically. I had to kind of go from New York to maybe like Canada, like Goose Bay. From there, I'll have to kind of go to Greenland, and then Greenland to probably Iceland, and to UK, and make my journey back here. So it'll probably be a 7-stop journey, but hopefully one day I'll kind of get that, and then perhaps when I kind of get it in Mangalore, I'll definitely give you guys a ride.
Any day, sir. We'll be ready. I mean, we already stitched whatever attire you need. We'll be ready.
There's no attire. That's a cool thing. Yeah.
So one more thing I wanted to ask you. So you are a tech enthusiast. Your inspiration, your stories have inspired many, and it is going to inspire even after this podcast. And after you have won the Karnataka Rajyotsava Award in the NRI category, that is Horadesha Horanadu, has it brought any change in you within these 2 days? Like some changes. Like I'm asking you like a common man. Like when Mrs. Naik give you a call, I'm an awardee now.
No,
has any changes or something like that?
Mrs. Naik would kind of put me in place very, very quickly, if I were to kind of do anything at all. Very quickly.
But in general, but before and after.
No, because, at the core, you're who you are.
Okay.
I went to a temple this morning, and I was for a change, basically, I said, wow, I really have nothing to really ask. I'm very grateful for all I have.
We all are
very grateful. So for a change, I think especially, it's a phenomenal journey. I mean, when I started here, when I was 18-year-old kid in Mangalore, I never really dreamt that I would actually probably have my own. I mean, having your own jet plane is different, but then I would be flying my own jet plane. I never really dreamt that. I never really dreamt that I would actually kind of build a world-class, tech AI company. I never dreamt that. And, I'm very blessed, very grateful, and I'm very thankful. And so there is, you have to kind of have humility for that.
We do understand your humility, what you're talking about, sir, but we are super proud that you have won that. So even if at all you show some of a pride or a show off, it's totally okay.
No way.
with Mrs. Naik or your daughter, your son, it's totally okay, because you need to feel that, because everybody doesn't achieve that, and it's the highest civilian award in Karnataka, and that's a huge thing, sir. And now I just want to ask you, we got to know regarding what is Mr. Sekhar Naik, his journey, what all is done. What are your future thoughts, or be it for the M result, or be it for the Karnataka economy, or is there anything like we as a kid, we write in a bucket list, okay, this is the award. So any next award slowly you have written and kept under your pillow, so this is the next award I dream for, something like that?
No, I think I never was. I think even this award was very surprising to me. I'm truly honored to kind of get this award. And, there are many very deserving people, who should have kind of gotten the award. But look, I think if somebody recognizes me, I think you should not, you should accept that. Humbly, you should accept the recognition. But I truly don't really have a list of awards at all. It's just, I think, again, kind of going back to the blessings I actually have, and also the opportunities I see. See, at a core, I'm an entrepreneur at a core, and this is not something that I've kind of made up. Right? This is something, when I look at changes, disruptions in business, when I kind of see the opportunities in technology, what can actually kind of happen, the world is kind of changing, through artificial intelligence, and also just generally like people's exposure to things. And also, especially in India, there is a lot more, people are able to really like afford a lot more things. I guess, obviously, consumption actually has its own downsides, the whole thing around environment, ecology, and all of that part. But other than those things, basically, so people actually have a much higher ability to kind of buy things, and that also means that there are new ways to deliver these things, and there are technology that we could use, we could kind of build, and also people's awareness around their health. That's a big thing as well, because ultimately, if we are comfortable, the thing that we want to do the most is we want to kind of live a healthy life. True. And so perhaps M Result, we work with a number of life science companies as well. So we kind of continue to basically kind of try to kind of build more and more solutions and technologies around that. We want to continue to bring in more employees in Mangalore area in Karnataka. That's kind of our base mostly, and also we are actually expanding globally. So we have just brought in an advisor basically for our Japanese market. We have a couple of Japanese clients who we service from the US, but we are planning on opening up a center in Japan. We have some existing customers, but we're looking at some new customers.
Anytime soon, sir?
We are actually working on it in the next couple of months. Probably we're going to do that.
Great.
We already have a presence in Australia. We're looking at ways on how do we kind of enhance that. We have a new advisor in UK. So M Result is kind of growing globally. We are looking at kind of growing. So there are tremendous opportunities for us, and also the fact that things are changing so rapidly, and that we are in some ways we are aware of what's kind of going on, sort of like being at the leading tip of cutting edge technologies in some ways. We are able to kind of see these things, and we want to leverage our expertise and kind of continue to kind of grow. Growth itself, you may ask, why do you want to really kind of grow? Because I think in some ways, as an entrepreneur, as a organization, as a company, there are only like two. Either you actually kind of grow, or you either go forward or you grow backwards. So there is no like standstill. So that's kind of the downside of being an entrepreneur, because you cannot really stop, and you have to kind of keep kind of growing, which thankfully, awesome. Abhishek, I love that.
Awesome. And, we all love that when you do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So as a conclusion for this video, I'm super excited, honored that I was given a chance to interview, and even the Mangalore Meri Jaan team. If anybody wants to know or how to be the next Sekhar Naik, any message you want to give to the
Again,
audience?
I want to kind of go back and just want to make it very clear. It can't be like the next Sekhar Naik. It would be the next avatar of somebody who's going to be really successful in whatever field is. Could be business, could be entrepreneurship, could be activism. I think that there are, now I've kind of recognized, especially in this new world, I've recognized a couple of attributes, and I would love to kind of share them with you. I think the biggest attribute that I think, there are just about like 3 attributes or so. The biggest attribute I see really is like hunger, right? So, let's say we look at attributes, hunger, their smartness, intellectual smartness, and also let's say we can look at actually their exposure. Yeah. So I really kind of see hunger as actually in terms of the success criteria as really number 1, because if you are hungry for success, there are like so many channels for you to kind of know what is kind of going on, and then you're able to kind of leverage that. There is obviously there are so many organizations as well that kind of promote entrepreneurship. So it's not like you're going to start from scratch. You could kind of go to ChatGPT and basically say, hey, listen, I'm an entrepreneur here in Mangalore. How do I kind of start? What are some of the challenges that I'm actually going to kind of see as an entrepreneur? You can talk to a number of other entrepreneurial organizations basically here and actually kind of figure out, hey, what do I do? What area do I do? So that is there. But I think if you're not hungry, it's going to be hard to really make a huge difference.
So that's a key line, sir.
That's a key.
If you're not hungry, it's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. You're going to be, hungry would mean like contentment, right? If you're contented, you're not going to, it's going to be hard for you to do it.
So this video is going to impact the viewers in a major way, because 2 days before we saw you on TV when you have been felicitated, but it was just a superficial side of Mr. Sekhar Naik, but we got to know in person through Mangalore Meri Jaan, and this podcast, I'm telling you from the bottom of my heart, this is a validation for the business podcast, that is Eye to Eye of Mangalore Meri Jaan, because a Karnataka Rajyotsava awardee and the winner is next to me, sir. So it's a pleasure you giving time for us so that this podcast is going to be a super successful touch wood, as I always say. And thank you once again, Mr. Sekhar Naik.
Abhishek, thank you. It was a pleasure being here and being able to talk to you about Mangalore and my journey. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure is all mine.
Bye.